I think the setting of Hounded in this sort of flintlock era alternate Britain really lends itself interestingly to the idea of weaving in those elements of sort of British heritage and culture. That I'm a folk musician, so I'm quite often out there on the trad scene, seeing the kind of things that make it go round and analysing the aspect of what makes that music kind of work. The thing that really came to mind to make the score kind of feel British is by weaving in some of those instruments in particular. So I mean, we started off with the concertina, which to me is so quintessentially British. I mean, you have multiple types. You've got the English or the Anglo or the duet concertina, all of which just scream kind of British identity. So we thought that would make a really, really great instrument to kind of ground ourselves in the kind of historical aspect of the world. And also, you know, it leans into the nautical side of it. So, you know, there's the mysterious force called the Tide, and there's, you know, Britain being an island, there's, of course, no escaping the sort of nautical side of things. So that's kind of how we started the idea of creating a really British sound. We also have been using this here flute,
which we actually got from Shrewsbury Folk Festival. And
shout out Shrewsbury Folk Festival.
And there was this guy on the side in a massive field full of traders, and one of them, he made homemade flutes, and one of the ones that we thought would work really well for Hounded was one in A minor. And one of the things that we wanted to do for each character of the game is have an instrument tied to them specifically. So for Duke, it is that flute. The kind of whimsical nature, the jumpy aspect that you can get with a flute, and it's actually quite peaceful in a way.
So working on Duke's theme has been probably one of the most sort of fun things we've got to do so far, because there's so much that goes into it. It is the main theme for the game. It's the theme for the character you play as. So
it's an epic tale.
It's an epic tale. Of course, it's a dog.
Yeah.
So epic tale. And it's a really non-linear process to actually get to do. There's a lot of oh yeah, we think we know what's going on, and so we'll write something and we'll send it through to Jack and Calvin.
They then bring us back with some feedback, so this might not actually be quite on the mark that we're going for. It doesn't completely fit the tone of the game. Where one of the examples I can give is we started off pretty dark with a theme, and then they came back, said, right, this is a little bit too sinister. When we got that feedback, we were actually kind of not devastated, but
there is that element of there's so much we've got to change. But back to square one.
But then we rewrote it, and the theme that came out of it was so much better than the first version that we just didn't even think about.
Yeah, incomparably better. You know, like Adam said, we started off down the wrong tracks, but you know, there's also the hope of this bright spark of Duke's master. And
the rebellion,
and the rebellion, and the hope that Duke has inside himself to go and find his master as well. You know, I think the kind of driving rhythms of that initial theme display that kind of determination and grit that Duke has throughout the story, and keeping going.
I also just like big drums.
Yeah, big drums good.
Big drums good.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of ambient music, because you know we both believe that is such an integral part of the game experience. Once you're past the big narrative moments where all the emotions are high and you get to hear the sort of the themes come out in their fullest, most intense versions, you have the complete other side of that, which is wandering around the world and exploring and finding your way. And it calls for just a completely different kind of music. Just kind of grounds you in the world in a way that's a lot more subtle and kind of slips by your radar a bit more.
We're big fans of Skyrim and The Witcher 3 in the way that they've done their ambient music, which is basically full orchestral tracks, but really dimmed down into the background, which fills in these gaps in gameplay which otherwise wouldn't be there. It's that looking out onto the hill with the village in the distance and the river going down through the valley, which adds this majesty to the world of Hounded. A lot of the themes that you hear first on, when you open up the game onto the main menu, you hear the epic tale that is Duke's theme. But if you were to listen closely to the ambient music, that theme is placed everywhere. It's disguised in ways where it allows the player to really immerse themselves in the world with Duke. The Tide is quite an interesting thing that we are going to compose for. It's going to be much different from the rest of the soundtrack. It's going to be a little bit more synth-based and sampled-based. One of the things that we really want to do is go down to the sea and record a bunch of sea-like sounds to get this Tide feeling that we're going to go for. It's something that regular sample library strings or real strings can't get when it comes to these pads that we're going to be creating for it. It's going to be this otherworldly figure calling out to Duke.
And I think that sense of sort of otherworldliness it is really key. I think we're grounding a lot of the rest of the soundtrack in almost this historical sense, because it's all very kind of real to the world, and I think going down the route of synthesis, which obviously is so vastly different, will really reinforce that kind of ethereal nature. I think of the outsider in Dishonored, or the Heroes Guild in something like Fable, where it's these otherworldly elements that kind of take place in the world and really set it apart.
In some ways, it will also be recognisable to the other ambient music in the game, because we'll compose alongside the current tracks that we've got almost an equivalent version, but in a completely different style.
So that, if you interact with something that has an element of the Tide in the world, you get that reflected in the music, and you can kind of cue that in nice and cleanly.
It's going to be real good fun.
Right. Oh, you know what I mean. No, it's just too early. I don't know. Who's called? I'm concertinaing it.